Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the largest ever single-day rescue operation in its history. Nigerian security forces say that they've returned 308 abductees home after freeing them from kidnappers who are holding them in a northern forest. Meanwhile, in South Africa, the textile industry is facing a workforce crisis in the wake of months of violent xenophobic protests that sent thousands of migrant workers fleeing the country. And we return to Nigeria, where we meet an artist turning to the earth to create vibrant portraits, blending science and creativity in a technique that he's hoping will redefine his fans' relationship with the canvas. But first, Nigeria says that it's pulled off the largest ever single-day rescue of kidnapping victims in its history. 308 people held captive in a forest in north-central Nigeria were freed, many victims of different attacks carried out by armed groups back in February. Now, President Bola Tinubu's holding up the operation as a major milestone in counter-terrorism efforts. Samuel Okoye has more.
163 of those rescued were abducted from the Woro community in Kayama local government area of Kwara State. 145 others were abducted from Niger State. The victims, who had spent 6 months in captivity, were rescued from the expansive Kanji Lake National Park forest in Niger State. The government says their rescue followed coordinated intelligence-driven operation carried out by the military in conjunction with other security agencies. The government says their successful rescue demonstrates the growing efficiency and collaboration among security services. Large-scale abductions remain a major security challenge in Nigeria. Most of the abductions are carried out by jihadist groups like Boko Haram and numerous other armed groups that carry out mass abductions as a criminal enterprise. With elections scheduled for early next year, the insecurity caused by mass abductions is expected to feature as a major campaign issue. President Bola Tinubu, who is seeking re-election, is trying to improve security ahead of the campaigns. The president has ordered tens of thousands of new recruits into the military. Early this week, the salaries of military personnel were raised by up to 80%. But some Nigerians insist the government must do more to address the insecurity.
Sam Olukoya there for us. Meanwhile, women marched through Nairobi's streets on Thursday, demanding the return of loved ones that they say were abducted amidst long-standing concerns by rights groups over alleged enforced disappearances in Kenya. Dozens of abductions have been linked to a period of anti-government protests in 2024. Kenyan authorities say that they're looking into the reported cases. And the head of Africa's Centre for Disease Control says that it will ramp up vaccinations for a previous Ebola strain as it races to contain the one currently behind the rapidly spreading outbreak in DR Congo. The Bujumbura variant has killed over 1,800 people since mid-May, and cases are doubling in some spots. The pressure has strained communities and frontline workers trying to stem the spread through the east of DR Congo. Authorities have struggled to manage, and some workers say that they haven't even been paid since the start of the crisis. On Thursday, dozens working to provide critical care for Ebola patients protested outside of the governor's office in Bunia, the capital of Ituri province, which accounts for around 90% of DR Congo's cases. Now, in a bid to roll back the number of fatalities from Ebola infections, the CDC says that it's banking on vaccines for the Zaire strain, providing some protection for those infected with the Bujumbura one.
We got data that those who were vaccinated with Zaire strain, either they are getting the disease, the bungyo, but it's just minor symptoms, or, and this is the most important one, they are not dying from that, because we saw zero death among people who are vaccinated.
Well, Uganda is paying tribute to a top footballer killed in a suspected robbery in Kampala earlier this week. 28-year-old Ugandan international David Owori, captain of SC Villa, one of the country's biggest soccer clubs, was critically injured before he was found unconscious by passers-by who took him to hospital. He later died. Now, Yildiz Kadir, the editor-in-chief of one of Ethiopia's last independent media outlets, says that he was abducted and assaulted by authorities following sensitive reporting on conflict in the northern region of Tigray. It comes amidst a crackdown on media covering new clashes between federal forces and local fighters in Tigray. Our correspondent in the Ethiopian capital, Tom Kinetti, spoke to Yildiz Kadir by phone after his release.
France 24 sat down with Yildiz Kadir in July after Addis Standard won the US's National Endowment for Democracy Award for courage in journalism. After the publication reported clashes between the TPLF and federal government forces on Saturday, the editor-in-chief claims that he was abducted by authorities.
On Saturday, August 1st, I was abducted by security personnel, physically assaulted, blindfolded, and held for about 24 hours while being interrogated. During the interrogation, they repeatedly questioned me about my work as editor-in-chief of Addis Standard. Particularly a question I asked the AFRICOM commander during a press briefing regarding the Ethiopian government's role in the Sudan civil war, as well as our reporting on the Tigray authorities' statement concerning the renewed fighting in western Tigray. While I was in detention, my residence was searched and both personal belongings and work-related equipment were confiscated. I was released the following day after being threatened. Despite this experience, I remain committed to the independent public interest journalism.
Neither the federal government nor the Addis Ababa police have released a statement regarding these claims. In April, another Addis Standard editor, Milliam Biene, was also allegedly kidnapped from the newsroom and held in a military detention center for almost 2 weeks. Journalists in Tigray have also felt restrictions. Earlier this year, the TPLF drafted a bill that would make it illegal for media organizations to criticize their military recruitment process and would punish them with jail time. Both the TPLF and the federal government forces have blamed each other for starting these clashes on Saturday, which come after months of brewing tensions. France 24 has not yet been able to independently verify any casualty tolls, but medical sources told the AFP that they had found 15 bodies of TPLF members across the Sudanese border after these clashes occurred.
Well, in South Africa, the textile industry is facing a workforce crisis after thousands of migrant workers fled over the past few months following violent xenophobic protests. Noah Berstecker tells us more.
In this South African clothing factory, rows of sewing machines have been standing idle for the past month. They used to be manned by skilled foreign workers, many of whom fled the country in the wake of xenophobic anti-immigration protests. The owner has since been struggling to fill the vacancies.
We can't immediately replace this skill with local. It takes time. And we were not prepared.
Since March, South Africa has been rocked by a series of anti-migrant marches and vigilante attacks against foreigners. The campaign blamed immigrants for the country's economic woes and sought to free up jobs for South African nationals. Targeted by widespread violence, over 160,000 foreigners have since fled the country in fear for their safety. In Newcastle, a textile manufacturing hub located in KwaZulu-Natal province, unions estimate around 15% of the workforce is gone, and employers say they lacked the skilled workers to replace them. A shortage they partly attribute to South African nationals' unwillingness to take on these difficult and demanding jobs.
Maybe the people, young people, they are choosing to the comfortable job, in my mind. Local people looking for the nurse, looking for the cashier, because textile, the clothing business is tough. You sitting 9 hours on the bench is not easy.
Others, however, say the jobs are not being filled because the pay is too low. Workers in the South African textile industry are typically paid by piece completed and often earn less than minimum wage.
Well, in Lagos, one Nigerian artist is turning ordinary clay into vibrant portraits, blending science and traditional creativity in a technique that he's hoping will help redefine fans of art relationship with the canvas. Take a look.
In a studio in Lagos, Emmanuel Olatunde is painting with an unlikely medium. The Nigerian artist has developed a technique that transforms natural clay into a palette of rich colors, creating textured portraits. His journey began at university. While experimenting with clay, Olatunde discovered he could adhere to canvas. Drawing on his background in chemistry, he refined the process by mixing liquid clay with metallic oxides and binding agents to produce a range of lasting colors.
I found out that oxidation changes the color of clay, more than just the natural way the color changes from the soil and every other thing. So I went to look for oxide, which is one of the things that ceramists, they used to also change the color of their own clay. So that's where I got different colors. And binder, I tried it and it worked.
The 39-year-old now gathers clay himself before processing and mixing it into paints. He says the medium brings an element of unpredictability that conventional paints cannot.
Clay itself has its own method, Why I control the outlook. The clay, when it dries, it just turns out to be what it wants to be. So I like the fact that I don't have all the answers that this is how I want it to turn out, except what I do with my brush. The drying process, the graying process, everything, it's just the clay. And I like the fact that it's natural on its own. So there's an independency with the artist, there's independency with the material. This is what is man.
Olatunde believes his work reflects a growing movement among African artists embracing sustainable, environmental-friendly materials while pushing artistic boundaries. Even so, convincing collectors and galleries to embrace clay as a serious painting medium remains a challenge. For now, Olatunde continues sharing his process online, proving that innovation can sometimes begin with nothing more than the soil beneath our feet.
What do you mean you can't convince people that's a legitimate medium? That's amazing. That is all we have time for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and do so again. Take care and have a lovely evening or day wherever you are. Take care.